Now, Cosatu has called on the National Treasury to come up. Well, let's move and go to this story. The Cosatu has asked the National Treasury to give clarity on the mass stimulus package in the upcoming medium-term budget policy statement. We are joined now by the spokesperson, Sizwe Pamla. Now, he says that this would help cushion citizens from hardship. He joins us now. A very good afternoon to you, Mr. Pamla. Before we get into the medium-term budget policy statement, which is going to be delivered on Thursday, what are your thoughts, your views, your statements as Cosatu on the rolling blackouts that South Africa is currently experiencing?
Well, look, these current rolling blackouts are really depressing. They are depressing because the impact they are having on the livelihoods of South Africa and the economy in particular is really devastating. I mean, if you look at the number of jobs that are going to get lost, this will be the third, fourth quarter year, which means the festive season where we have these rolling blackouts. What it means is that even people who normally will get temporary jobs at the time because of festive spending are unlikely to get those jobs. We are unlikely to see the kind of economic boom or this is something that is becoming a huge problem. We hear people talking about removing the board. We hear people talking about the CEO stepping down. We understand exactly why they are making this call, but we want a much more broader conversation as to something that's going to say, why is it that 10 CEOs, many of them who have not served more than 2 years, are failing to fix this institute? What is it that we are missing, all of us? Because 18 months ago, we were able to get rid of a board and a CEO. And 18 months later, we are seated here talking about doing the same thing. We are not fixing the problem with all of this. And if you look at some of the allegations coming out of that institution, you realize that we've just seen some people are stealing something like 100 million rand worth of fuel from the power utility. And if you look at the amount of fuel that is being stolen, now you understand why we have persistent load shedding. Because some people are making...
Mr. Pamla, I do apologize. We have a very bad line. If our team gives you another opportunity and gives us another opportunity to talk and try and get you back on a better line so we can continue our conversation. Once again with Cosatu's Sizwe Pamla as we focus on Eskom issues, the blackouts, as well as the upcoming medium-term budget policy statement. Mr. Pamla, I believe we do have you back on a better line. Let's start again, shall we? Because we really did miss a large chunk of your reaction as Cosatu to these rolling blackouts that we're experiencing in the country.
Well, like I was saying, we find it totally unacceptable. This is going to have a devastating impact on the economy. Like I was mentioning before, this is the fourth year, this is the third year actually, where we are experiencing load shedding during the fourth quarter of the year. It means that this economy has not benefited from the boost that we'll normally get during the festive season. And if you look at the periodical COVID lockdowns and this load shedding, it means that this economy doesn't stand a chance. We are going to have a medium budget policy statement on Thursday. Whatever is that will be said in that statement, it is dependent on whether we can fix load shedding. If we are unable to fix load shedding, half of the stuff that will come out of that medium budget policy statement will be meaningless.
And what do you believe ought to be a more sustainable solution? Because as you say, we seem to be in this Ferris wheel, this roller coaster ride, and are dealing with exactly the same issues year after year.
Well, as Cosatu, we believe that we need really a comprehensive approach. And that comprehensive approach, it means that firstly we need to investigate. Why is it that 10 CEOs in 8 years have failed to turn around the power utility. It means that there are structural problems. We also need to check, who are these people that we entrust with the responsibility to fix this mess? Not just at a national level or at a CEO level. We need to find out whether these people who run these operations at a much mid-level and lower level, do they have the requisite skills? Some of the mistakes that we get told about, are they mistakes? Or they are just deliberate actions by people who benefit out of load shedding? We hear that some people are stealing diesel. We hear that some people are looting and stealing the spare parts that are supposed to fix these power stations. That is the information that we need, because we have been doing the same thing for 8 years now. We have had 10 CEOs. None of them have served more than 2 years. We have had boards where we have either fired half the board or we'll fire the entire board, and we are unable to fix the problem. It means that we have not necessarily found out what is wrong with the power utility. And until we get to a point where we do an honest assessment, find out what is it that is wrong, and we'll know what we're dealing with. So far, we are looking for solutions that make us feel good. We are looking for a feel-good factor. Fire somebody else, and then we feel good. 18 months later, we realize that we haven't started.
Let's turn our focus now to Thursday, where Minister Enoch Godongwana will be presenting his maiden, midterm budget policy statement. You, as Cosatu, have called for a mass stimulus package. Break this down for us. What does it look like?
Well, for an example, the first thing that needs to be done is to acknowledge the fact that the approach that was adopted in February 2020 and February 2021 has failed. The results are in. If you look at unemployment, it has risen to 44%, the worst it has ever been. Not just economic results, but also political. South Africans have looked at these policy choices and they disagree, and they are clear that this is not working, and they just don't have the patience anymore. So the minister needs to really acknowledge, by acknowledging it means that he has to walk back some of those policies. The budget cuts that we have seen, where money has been taken from the Department of Health, where money has been taken from public servants, where money has been taken from labor market institutions like CMA and other institutions. We need all of that first. That's number one. With regards to stimulus package, already we have made a proposal sometime last year to say, if you were to allow public servants and private sector employees to have access to their pensions and be able to pay off their debt, firstly, what that will achieve is that you will release that money back into the economy. We estimate that more than 100 billion will be spent back to the South African economy if that were to be processed and approved. At the same time, government itself will be able to collect some of that money to revenue collection. But also, if you have a number of South Africans being given an opportunity to pay off their debts, it means that those individuals, they improve their credit scores. So when the interest rates allow, they are able to go and access credit and meaningfully participate in the economy again. The problem currently is that even if you were to cut interest rates all the way to zero, the majority of South Africans, including corporations, by the way, are too highly indebted for them to have any access to credit. So if you help South Africans to clear their debts and be able to in their credit records, it will allow them to borrow money and spend the money and create the kind of domestic demand that this economy needs.
Economic sources have promulgated and put forward what they call a business-friendly policy. They say that these are the type of policies that need to be focused on, and those business-friendly policies are what's needed in order to stimulate sustainable economic growth. Are you in agreement with that view?
No, we disagree with that because people are talking as if we don't have business-friendly policies. We do have. We are where we are because of our business-friendly policy. Let's go back to the February budget. Corporate tax was cut from 28% to 27%. The idea here was that if you give corporations this money, they will spend it back into the economy. Where is the evidence? that that money has been spent, at least on creating jobs or back into the economy. Because what you would have expected is that, firstly, people look at this money, those with positive results, they pay dividends so that government can tax that money. They invest it back into the economy, they increase workers' wages. None of that has happened. There is no evidence that any of that has happened. So government stopped collecting money that now it needs to take care of the people who are unemployed. Yet that money, it doesn't know what happened to it. It cannot account for it, and business is not interested. It's asking for more incentives. That is the problem that we have. Let's look at exchange controls. Private corporations in South Africa can take money in and out of the country without any tariffs or interference. As a result, they take 80 billion out of this country every year. We're not saying this. State security agencies has told us so when it answered questions in Parliament. So when you talk about business-friendly environment, it doesn't get better than South Africa. In fact, South Africa currently is the best government that any private sector could ever wish for. So the idea that there's still more that this government should be doing, if this government continues to give this South African private sector more business-friendly policies, it will literally be running a corporate welfare state. I mean, you look at the incentive schemes, and you look at something like the youth wage subsidy, where you subsidize private sector companies for employing young people. We have millions of young people seated at home. People take money, and we don't see any reduction in unemployment. You look at the youth employment scheme. None of these schemes have worked. Yet money has been given to the private sector with no outputs visible for any of us to quantify. So the reality here is that we need a government that is going to realize it has tried the pro-business policies and they have not worked. It's about time it changes tack.
Mr. Sizwe Pamla, spokesperson of Cosatu, we thank you very much for your time and your insight today.